Every writer's supplied with a voice in their head. It tells them they're rubbish, rips could work into shreds. It's a virus inside them. It thrives on defeat, but it wouldn't stop one man, a man they called Keith. Now, Keith was a poet. At least he wrote every month. And he read what he wrote, although most of it stunk. It was turgid at best. Every word as it left would just twirl in the air like a turd in a dress. And with rambling glee, he would ham up his readings. At times, he would pause for no sensible reasons. His structures bedraggled, the themes would unravel. If Duffy's, Mills and Boone, well, Keith was more razzle. And you'd think that with Keith, some misspent youth there, you'd think that with Keith, that voice that's inside him would have beefed up somewhat, like a critical Viking. That wasn't the case, though. See, Keith wasn't frightened. He weren't a great writer. He just really liked writing. And every month in the bar with the mic in the corner, they'd slump as he started reciting this torture, dishing out words like a toilet that's blocked. The image is shitty, the rhyme's badly forced, and although they'd all dread it every week, he still read it, pulling metaphors like teeth without any anesthetic. It was painful, all right. And while his work offered no joy, it did worse than that. It pissed off the old boys. See, because Keith was well known. And his name was like venom to the old boys who moaned that he just didn't get it. I mean, what on earth is he doing? Where is the elegance? Where is the rhyme, the reason, the relevance? Why bother trying? It seems hardly Tennyson. It's a well-trudged routine. It had gone on for ages. But one evening, Keith brought out a handful of pages and he started to read and the room became flat because even for Keith, what Keith read was quite bad. And the old boys sat back. Their eyes quickly tightened. This was bad, like really bad. And at first they sat there in silence. Then they shivered. They howled as though in bereavement. It was bad, really bad. They just couldn't believe it. Some started to shake as though channeling demons. There's no rhyme, shuddered one. Dear God, there's no reason. And that night they sat round. They dissected the problem. Keith's work was so bad that they had to do something. But what? I mean, what? Nothing's stopping this guy. You can't put him off just by rolling your eyes or pretending to refusing to clap at the end of recital. It would take more resolve. It would take something final. So they agreed to the plan. In the depths of their cloister, there was only one option. That option was Moida. At the next open mic, Keith started reciting. The old boys were armed, huge bags stacked behind him. Each bag they had full, and as Keith hit his stride, their hands darted down, wrapped around what's inside, and in seconds they set to removing his grin. Each tomato they threw weren't removed from no tin. It was a shocking amount to take on the chin, on the shin, on the shoulder, the temple, the teeth. As the cans hammered hard, he collapsed in a heap, and the old boys, they cheered with each thud on his flesh, and the tins they piled up until poor Keith was dead. Oh, sad, isn't it? When the next open mic came, there was no Keith. Delight reigned. The old boys felt great, like they'd banished a migraine. And more nervous, the poets seemed to raise up their standards. Their poems were good, at least the best that they'd managed. With the night almost finished, a new Veitch reader ventured to read her first piece about senile dementia. As she stumbled her way on her thoughts for her dad, the old boys just gasped. It was nearly as bad. I mean, yeah, it was better, more honest, but the mess was all led by the rhyme, trying to cram in a metaphor. They rushed for their tins, they threw double hard, and they cheered as they sprayed bits of brain on the bar. The following day, they stood at a funeral. One of them read. The piece was quite beautiful, and in the sunlight, it seemed right to be passing this judgment. I mean, who best to shield words and those longest incumbent? They'd pull out the weeds, stop new ones from sowing. Yes, poetry's a standard in need of upholding, and so every month, they held tins throughout everyone's verse, and they pelted each poet whose poems are worst. And with that going on, with those that went on facing death on the mic, 20 poets became 12, became 8, became 5. And as the numbers soon dwindled, no newbies to bludgeon, the old boys in time grew to turn on each other. One night, one old boy stalled. He screwed up a stanza. Before he could argue, they threw home the cans. And one evening, as one went into his kitchen, he was greeted with the words, "James, your work has been slipping." It was a universal truth. One was always judged worst, no matter how hard they strived. And so the old boys, they just started dropping like flies. Another one dared, another one dared. Another fudge line meant a can to their head until finally one month, there was just one poet left. And the quality was high from start through to finish, but the open mic lasted just a handful of minutes, and that poet was grinning. He had no weight of this murder, the blood in his hands. He thought, I'll go a stage further. I must finish this off. This great work we've begun. Why have all of these poems when you only need one? Yeah, one single poet. That's it. That's the answer. No way that anything could lower that standard. And he went home in a frenzy. He laughed all demented. He burned every piece. The purge was intensive. He went to a mirror and standing there pensive, he brained himself hard till his face was indented. And that was, well, that. Poetry was safe and removed from all failings and lofty and great and lonely and empty and lacking in meaning, removed from us sinners just to rot on the ceiling. And I wonder sometimes if that's what they're craving. When I see and hear poets obsessed with this slating, because hating each other seems dumb, and I'm guessing that we'd stop it pretty quick if we saw the route that we're heading. Look, here's to every poet who's messed up a piece, who fucks the work up and still doesn't retreat. Because if you ask me if we're craving more Tennysons and Keats, it's just as important that we cheer on the Keiths. Thank you very much for listening to me.